Welcome to today's video where we're going to be going over my Grand Teton short film that came out recently and covering a bunch of topics related to the video. We'll talk about the trip details, some of my ramblings about the trip, how the short film came about, the music behind the short film, as well as some orchestration tips and how I created the music for it. There'll be a lot of info in this video, so I'll put timestamps in the description if you want to jump around to whatever you find most interesting if you don't want to watch the entire video. Also, feel free to ask in the comments if there's anything I glossed over or anything you'd like to hear some more information about. But before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to my buddy Ian. He went on the trip with me. He and I not only graduated college together, but we studied the same thing, composition and film. He has a YouTube music channel as well, and please check him out if you're looking for another quality music source. He loves to help out people and will definitely engage with you if you have specific questions. He does great stuff on things like how to write retro 8-bit music or how to articulate your orchestration in Logic. He does a wide range of things covering score analysis, all types of things. Please go check out his channel. He's a great dude and he would love to help you out. And with all that being said, let's get started. I had an idea earlier this year to do a project that combined all of my studies that I did in college, primarily music and film. I also studied photography back in the day, so I wanted to do something that could combine all three of those things, film, music, and photography, into this big project that I could call my own, no matter how it turned out for good or for bad. And I decided I wanted to take a road trip to some of the national parks in the western United States. The plan was to shoot these little short films and then compose custom music set to the short films. And one of the things that really attracted me to the idea was that I would be able to make it completely my own. Because in school, I did projects like these, but I was under constraints of an assignment or learning specific techniques, which is fine for school. But I wanted to do something that I could do all on my own. I could do my own editing, I could do my own filming, I could do my own music, however I wanted, and I didn't need to follow any certain set of rules. And as I started getting the plan more into focus, I told my buddy Ian about it, and he was all on board. Like I said, we studied the same thing in college, so this was right up his alley, and he was all in on it, and he did one as well on the Grand Canyon. Again, you can go check out his channel. He does a great score for his video, as well as a behind the scenes on how he wrote some of the themes. So if you're looking for even more information on this kind of thing, check out his video on it. But during the lead up to the trip, I started getting a little apprehensive about actually going through with the project. I had never done anything like this before, so I started to worry, will it turn out good? Will I get the shots I need? What if the music sucks? I don't really know how to do some of this stuff. And I finally settled down and told myself, you know what, you probably are going to make a ton of mistakes, but it's going to be so worth it, and you're going to want to look back on it and say you were able to do something like this. And again, I made a ton of mistakes doing this project, but I think that's great. I think it's important to have a big project that you're unsure if you're actually able to do, and then just give it a try, see what happens. The information and skills you learn from doing a big project that you're actually a little afraid of is invaluable and help you develop your craft and grow as a person. So Ian and I decided to take this road trip. We'd go to places like Arches National Park in Utah. We'd go to the Grand Canyon in northern Arizona. Unsurprisingly, there was a lot of driving involved in doing a trip like this, but we saw so many cool sights along the way that I didn't even know about and would never have seen unless I did a trip like this. One minute you'd be in the desert, and then the next minute you'd be in this beautiful mountain range, and only in the span of maybe less than 100 miles, you'd see such a drastic change that really opens your eyes to the wonders around us. I know I take for granted some of the natural beauty that our world has, and if you have the chance to go explore some of the national parks in your area, whether it's in the United States or across the world, go do it. Go see what's out there, and you'll remember trips like that for the rest of your life. After literally the longest single drive of my life, we made it back home, and as I started to edit the footage together and kind of see what I had, I decided that the Grand Teton National Park would be my first film that I would do. The place was so breathtaking that basically any photo I took or footage I got was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And it's nothing I did as a photographer or filmmaker. I basically just plopped the camera down and shot what was out there, and these amazing images came back. And I'll always remember, going to Jenny Lake and seeing the lake with the mountains right up against the water. It was absolutely beautiful. And that's what I wanted to try and capture with these films is the beauty of these places. And the steps I took was taking a rough edit of the film. Then I would write the music, and then I would plug the music back into Premiere Pro to edit the final film, as well as color grading and adding in some final touches. So that was the process and workflow that worked for me. It might be different for you if you are going to embark on a project like this, but I found that was the easiest, and it was the easiest in terms of trying to control all the different moving parts, where I wouldn't get too far in one of them, where if something worked, I would have to change the entire thing. The way I found, if you start with a rough edit and then write the music, you still have your idea for the film, but the music can be its own organic thing rather than you finish the entire film and then have to squeeze the music into that film. Doing it this way allowed me the flexibility to change shots if I needed to, or change the music if I needed to. I wasn't tied down to any one idea. For composing, I used the program Sibelius by Avid, and one of the things I really liked about it is it allows you to drag in a movie file and have the movie file right along the score with you, so you can edit exactly to the film you need to. If a measure needs to be 3/4 to fit in a certain shot, you can do that. If it needs to be 7/8, what have you. It's a really handy tool to have the film with you as you score. And I know that Apple's Logic Pro has a similar feature where you can drop in a video file and write the music to that. If you've never tried it before, give it a shot. I mean, you can grab a commercial and take out the audio and start scoring to it to get into the habit of how that works, how you need to edit to different shots. I mentioned earlier how I was able to control the edit if I needed to make a shot longer or shorter. And sometimes that isn't the case. You're given a film and they say, this is it, you need to write the music to this. And something like Sibelius, where you can drop in the movie, it's so helpful. And now let's talk about the music and the layout of the music and how the theme came about and how I started to lay out the actual track. The first thing I did was start with my first edit of the film, and then I sat down at the piano and wrote the main theme for the film, which sounds like this. That was my starting point. I had that as the main theme of the film, so now I needed to start laying out the rest of the track. I didn't know much about the music or where it would go or where it would take me, but I did know two things. The first is that I wanted that main theme to play multiple times, and the second is that I wanted to use an orchestra. I settled on having the theme play in the beginning, somewhere in the middle, and somewhere at the end. And now that I had the benchmarks on where the theme would go, I could start filling in those other sections. And while the theme plays 3 times, it's actually in 3 different keys: B flat major, E flat major, and G major. And using multiple keys is a useful way to repeat musical ideas while also keeping things fresh for the listener. And this is especially true in instrumental pieces like mine. So now I have my main theme. I know roughly where it's going to be in the film. I needed to write a new section to link the 2 themes. And one way you can do this is by using the minor 6 chord to write a new section of music. This allows you to change the musical ideas, but still keep it in the same key and keep it relevant to what you played earlier. In my piece, I had B flat major as the main theme, and so I wrote a new section in G minor, which is the minor 6 of B flat major. And to link these two sections together, I used a 5 of 6 secondary dominant to make sure it was a smooth change from my main theme to this new section I wrote. Check it out. Now that I had a main theme into a different musical idea, I wanted to bring the main theme back, but I changed keys to E flat major. And one of the ways I did this was by using a common chord of A flat major. A flat major is the flat 7 in B flat, so we get some chromaticism with the note A flat, but it's also the 4 chord in E flat major. And what happens when you use a common chord like that between two keys is it's a very smooth transition. So here's that example of our main theme, the new section, as well as our main theme repeated in the new key of E flat. I continued that process of writing new material as well as bringing back old themes until I had finished the layout of the song. The next thing I needed was a main melody, and I came up with this. For orchestration, when writing a main melody, it never hurts to have it doubled in another section of instruments. For example, if you write the main melody in the high flute range, you can have some of the other woodwinds doubling the melody to give it a more full sound. And if you want to write a harmony to the melody, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. If your melody goes up in pitch, you can write a harmony melody that goes down in pitch. These subtle changes help give it a more full sound as well as being more engaging. Here's our main melody with our harmony melody, and pay attention to how the harmony melody doesn't really change that many notes, but it still makes it sound like there's more going on than there actually is. And if you have some empty spaces between notes, like my main melody does, that's where you can start to fill in some of the other instruments. Maybe it's brass or some of the strings or some of the other woodwinds, whatever you'd like. You can take these empty spaces and start to create a more full sound. Yet again, here's our example, but we're going to add in some of the other supporting instruments that help fill out the sound even more. And that's how I completed the song. I broke it up into chunks and then wrote for specific parts rather than trying to take a look at an entire 6-minute orchestration and getting overwhelmed. I broke it into little sections and then filled it out where I thought there needed to be music, or took away things where I thought it could just be a few instruments. Here's a chunk of the reduced score, and then we'll take a look at some orchestration tips and then wrap it up. I'm still working on how to best go over orchestration techniques because there's so many things to do and so many topics to cover. So if there's something you'd like to hear more about, or if there's something I glossed over too quickly, let me know in the comments. I'll answer it there, or I'll even try to make a video out of it. But here's some ideas on getting started if you're looking into writing orchestra music or orchestrating for multiple parts. The first tip is to start small. If you've never written for an orchestra, one thing that really helped me is writing for a small ensemble. I arrange pieces for maybe 3 or 4 guitars as well as a bass. And what this does is it teaches you how to navigate a melody with harmonies and how those notes can stay out of each other's way, as well as complement each other if there's a moment of interest. Another tip is that you can take existing songs and write your own arrangement for it. Even better if it has a vocal melody, because the melody is already written out for you. If you look at jazz lead sheets, like say Beyond the Sea, it has the vocal melody written out, and you can start practice and experimenting on harmonizing with those notes. It helps too because the lead sheet gives you the chords for it, so you can start filling out the bass and some of the other notes that you want to harmonize with. And the last tip is one of the most important things you can do to start learning how to compose your own music for large ensembles. And that's taking an actual score and following along with the music. The website imslp.org is a wonderful resource because it has thousands of scores that you can look through. They're mostly classical era scores because those are under free domain, but you can take, Mozart or Beethoven or Chopin and take their score and follow along to a YouTube video and see how the composer articulated certain notes, how they did certain violin runs, how they wrote for certain instruments, just countless ways. It's so helpful. You learn from the masters and how they did their craft. And that's all we have for today. I hope this information was beneficial for you if you're looking to start your own major project, or if you were just curious how my Grand Teton short film came about. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching.